As the rap game started feeling more like the streets, artist crews, made up of close friends, family, and even straight-up thugs, became a big part of the problem.
Most rap crews are made up of, I say 50% businessmen and 50% thugs. 50% of your crew is made up of homeboys that just came home from jail.
These entourages have been responsible for stirring up drama between artists, whether it's at award shows or anywhere else.
That thug element is always ready to reach out and touch anybody, whether it's a cameraman, whether it's an interviewer, whether it's somebody on the radio.
And even if the artists themselves aren't looking for trouble, there's only so much they can do to control the grown men around them.
You might tell a person, look, I really need you to slow down and cease fires and that. Hey, he's a grown man. When you're not around, he might just come along anyway and just, you know, do what he want to do on his own.
From the brawl between G-Unit and Suge Knight's crew, to the clash between Rick Ross and Young Jeezy. These are times rappers brought their gangs to award shows, kicking things off with Dr. Dre, G-Unit, and Suge Knight. It all went down at around 7:25 p.m. at the 2004 Vibe Awards, just as Dr. Dre was about to receive the Lifetime Achievement Award from Snoop Dogg and Quincy Jones.
We came here tonight to honor somebody that I love and I respect most props to, Dr. Dre.
Out of nowhere, a man named Jimmy James Johnson approached Dre, acting like he just wanted an autograph. But instead of pulling out a pen, he threw a punch right at Dre, catching everyone off guard. The place instantly erupted into a full-on brawl. People were pushing, shoving, and even throwing chairs as the situation spiraled out of control. Reports say around 1,000 people from the audience rushed toward the exits, trying to get away from the madness. And right in the middle of it all was Young Buck from G-Unit, armed with a knife. Witnesses saw him swinging it, and later it was confirmed that he had stabbed Johnson in defense of Dre.
Suddenly, you could see a shiny knife in his right hand. He lunges over the top with a stabbing motion. Police say that is 23-year-old Young Buck, who then vanished.
But Buck wasn't the only one who got to Johnson. Multiple people attacked him that night. It got so bad that arrest warrants were issued for Buck, and he was facing some serious legal trouble.
The entertainer, also known as Young Buck, was charged in connection with an attack Monday night at the Vibe Awards.
Mr. Brown was arrested for 1 count of attempted murder and 1 count of assault with a deadly weapon.
Now, while no one could say for sure if Suge Knight was behind the attack, it definitely looked suspicious. According to Tony Yayo, the G-Unit crew saw Suge Knight and Irv Gotti walking past their trailer, and that was enough to put them on high alert.
I wouldn't say we were scared, but it was the Vibe Awards when we seen Suge Knight and Irv Gotti, and they walked past the trailer.
50 Cent didn't take any chances. He told his people to go and buy several knives just in case things went south. And clearly, they weren't wrong to prepare.
50 just look at James Cruz, so he just taps James Cruz and say, yo, go buy 20 knives. Yeah, just go to the hardware store. It was about 20 to 15 of us, something like that. Suge Knight got like some crazy looking Compton-looking dudes with him, you know what I'm saying? So it just, you felt the energy.
In the end, Tony Yayo ended up receiving 3 years of probation and was ordered to do 80 hours of community service. Next up, we got the showdown between Rick Ross and Young Jeezy at the 2012 BET Hip Hop Awards. It all started backstage at the Atlanta Civic Center, where things got heated between the two camps. A little pushing and shoving soon escalated into a full-blown fight. And before long, the brawl spilled out into the parking lot.
His first tweet said, Jeezy and Rick Ross just had words backstage, pushing and shoving, exclamation point, exclamation point.
Second tweet went, beef just spread to the parking lot.
Word spread fast, and social media went into a frenzy. Hot 97's DJ Funkmaster Flex even tweeted, shots fired in parking lot, gunman arrested.
At which point Flex presumably ran outside to tweet, shots fired in the parking lot, gunman arrested. Back to the show and club later.
But despite the rumors flying around, the Atlanta Police Department later clarified that no shots were fired, no arrests were made, and thankfully, no one was seriously injured.
Full of celebrity eyewitnesses say that there were gunshots. Official police reports said that this is absolutely false.
But that wasn't even the end of it. A separate fight broke out involving rapper Gunplay, who was caught on camera getting jumped outside the event. A video later surfaced showing Gunplay being thrown into a metal barricade by a group of men. And guess who was reportedly in the mix? 50 Cent. Now the footage was shaky, but it clearly showed 50 Cent and his entourage in the parking lot when all hell broke loose. While it's hard to say for sure if 50 himself threw any punches, someone can be heard on the recording saying, "That was 50 fighting too."
Yo, who was that, 50 fighting? Yo, what 50 fighting too? Word? Yeah.
Gunplay, outnumbered and taking heavy hits, somehow managed to fight back. But before things could get even worse, police rushed in, spraying mace to break up the melee. Then there's the Migos. Back at the 2017 BET Awards, Migos were doing a red carpet interview with academics Navendra Alexis and Joe Budden. Academics brought up Takeoff being left off the track Bad and Bougie, which Takeoff didn't appreciate.
Bad and Bougie. I ain't left off Bad and Bougie. You think I'm left off Bad and Bougie? Say again? You say I'm left off Bad and Bougie? What'd you say? You say I'm left off Bad and Bougie? Yeah. Do it look like I'm left off Bad and Bougie?
Sensing the bad vibe, academics tried to smooth things over, but Joe Budden had other ideas. He cut off Takeoff and academics, saying they needed to wrap it up.
Something I like about the group, because ever since when you were in jail, even though you might see one or the other, y'all move as a collective.
All right, we gotta wrap this up though.
Quavo, sensing the disrespect, told Joe to go ahead and wrap it up, which led to Joe dropping the mic and walking out.
Close it. Close it.
Hey, listen, man, I wish I could talk to the Migos longer, man. It's one of my favorite groups. I've been covering for so long, I'm glad they succeeded, man.
That's when things really popped off. Migos, not ones to take disrespect lightly, all stood up ready to handle it right there on the red carpet.
Hey, have a good show.
What are you trying to do?
Hold on. Wait.
That same night, the Migos ended up in a heated altercation with Chris Brown. It all went down outside an after-party in Los Angeles. The night was wrapping up and everyone was leaving when suddenly someone from Chris Brown's crew pushed Quavo. The second that happened, one of Quavo's guys jumped in to defend him, but before he could do much, he caught a punch himself. And while all this was happening, Chris Brown just kept walking, completely unfazed, like he wasn't even part of the drama. But the Migos weren't about to let it slide that easily. Instead of letting it go, they and a few of their people followed Chris all the way to his car, surrounding him. Now, the crazy part is that it wasn't always bad blood between Chris Brown and Migos. In fact, not long before this, Brown actually rocked with them heavy. He had been showing them love, promoting their album culture, and even hyping them up in interviews. But somewhere along the line, things took a sharp left turn, and apparently, it all came down to one thing: a woman. Just a month before all this drama, Quavo was spotted out with Karrueche Tran, actress, model, and most importantly, Chris Brown's ex. They were seen together at a festival in Biloxi, Mississippi, and that's when things started to spiral. Now, for most people, this wouldn't be a big deal. But Chris Brown has a history of not handling breakups well, and his relationship with Karrueche post-split was no different. To make matters worse, their breakup wasn't exactly peaceful. Karrueche had even gone as far as getting a restraining order against Brown, with claims that he had been harassing her. So when Chris found out Quavo was dating her, he wasn't just mad, he felt betrayed. See, Chris and Quavo weren't just industry acquaintances, they were actually cool. According to TMZ, their relationship went beyond music. Quavo had been to Brown's house, they had hung out, and Brown had even supported Migos' come-up. So when he saw Quavo and Karoeche together, he took it personally, like his boy had stabbed him in the back. Of course, to everyone else, this whole situation seemed ridiculous. Just because you're cool with someone doesn't mean you get to dictate who they date for the rest of their life. Next up, we have the infamous 2000 Source Awards, a night that was supposed to celebrate hip-hop's biggest talents, but instead turned into a chaotic mess of fights, crew rivalries, and full-blown brawls. If there was ever an award show that felt more like a war zone, this was it. It got so bad that the police had to shut the whole award down.
Turned ugly early as fists flew outside and police intervened even before the show began. Fortunately, it didn't end there. After just 3 performances, violence erupted inside, forcing police to take the stage and even end the night's festivities.
According to people who were there that night, at least 5 different fights broke out at the Pasadena Civic Auditorium, some before the show even started, and others while it was going on. It was one of those nights where the tension in the air was thick, and all it needed was a little spark to set everything off. The first scuffle of the night involved DJ Quik's bodyguard. Dude was just getting out of a car when, out of nowhere, some unidentified guy ran up and sucker punched him. And if you know anything about hip-hop beef, you know DJ Quik isn't the type to just stand by and let that slide. He jumped out, ready to throw down. But before he could even do anything, the cops swarmed him.
Lying on the ground, got into it with someone in DJ Quik's entourage.
They put him in what witnesses described as a chokehold, and the crowd wasn't having it. People started yelling, getting riled up, basically letting the cops know that if they hurt Quik, they'd have to deal with all of them. The whole situation got so intense that the police had to back off. Instead of arresting Quik, they took him around the corner, talked to him, and then let him go. Now, the police later tried to downplay the situation. Their spokesperson, Janet Hinton, claimed they didn't put Quik in a chokehold, but instead used an upper body restraint. And that was just the first fight. A little while later, another altercation broke out, this time between members of the Outlaws and someone affiliated with Bad Boy Entertainment, the label run by none other than Diddy. Given the history between West Coast and East Coast rap, it didn't take much for things to pop off. But before it could turn into something worse, legendary boxing promoter Don King just happened to be nearby and stepped in to break things up. Meanwhile, another situation was brewing elsewhere in the venue. Lil Wayne, who was still an up-and-coming artist at the time, found himself in a weird spot. Some people in the crowd started throwing signs, basically flashing gang affiliations, and they were blocking his path as he tried to move through the audience. But none of those incidents compared to the wildest fight of the night, the one involving E40 and Mac Minister. E40, one of the biggest names in Bay Area hip-hop, was chilling, having a conversation with some of the Cash Money crew when Mac Minister suddenly appeared. Now, Mac Minister wasn't just some random guy. He had actually worked with E40 in the past, even appearing on one of his albums where he played a preacher reciting the 10 Commandments of Macking. But apparently Mac felt like he didn't get enough credit for helping E40's career, and he was still salty about it. So in front of a crowd that included the Outlaws, Cash Money, and a bunch of other rap crews, Mac Minister decided to press E40. He started going off, berating him, trying to make a scene. But E40, as used to being the seasoned vet that he is, tried to keep things cool. He wasn't looking for a fight, at least not in the middle of an award show, but then Mac Minister took it way too far. Instead of just talking, he crossed a major line. He straight up pushed E40 and then yanked his chain off. And that was a mistake. The second that chain got snatched, Mac Minister got jumped immediately. He caught what people described as the beatdown of a lifetime. From where one journalist, Davey D, was sitting, it looked like E40 was trying to avoid the fight. But once his chain got taken, it was a wrap.
Tonight, after fights broke out in the audience and spread up onto the stage, UPN is taping new segments to fill out the show, which means you won't be seeing a lot of what actually happened, which is what you are seeing right now.
But according to Ayiko Broyard, a music marketing manager who was there that night, another fight had gone down at almost the same time, involving someone from Cash Money's crew. Apparently, this guy wasn't part of the actual group, so it wasn't Juvenile, Lil Wayne, or any of the main artists, but he still ended up getting hurt pretty bad. It was bad enough that he had to seek medical attention, which caused Cash Money to shut everything down. They canceled everything, Broyard explained. Slim of Cash Money is very protective of his posse. Meanwhile, back to the E40 situation. His publicist, Echo Haddix, made it clear that E40 wasn't the one instigating anything. "I'm sure that E40 was just trying to stop a commotion," she said. "He was trying to be a peacemaker because that's what he does all day, every day." But when E40 himself finally spoke on the incident, his explanation was a little more vague. It just got out of control, he admitted in a phone call the next afternoon. People was there that didn't have no business being in the first 8 rows. No rappers or nothing. It was just a normal guy from outside. Just tripping, drunk, overhappy. He was talking loud to me, talking about, I'm this and I'm that. And security wasn't tight either. It was chaos. Basically, E40 was trying to say that this wasn't some deep rap beef or label rivalry, just some random drunk dude causing trouble. He also made it a point to shut down any rumors that this was some kind of feud between E40 and Cash Money. I want to clear the air, he said. It was not an E40 Cash Money thing. But while E40 was dealing with his own situation, the night was only getting crazier. Around 8 p.m., the Pasadena Civic Auditorium completely lost control. According to reports, scores of people started flooding out of their seats. Some were rushing toward the exits, probably trying to avoid whatever fight was breaking out, while others, up to 75 people, stormed the stage. It was pure mayhem.
But we gotta go! Ladies and gentlemen, please take down the steps, please.
Security tried to step in, but before they could even get a grip on what was happening, the crowd turned on them. People in the audience started throwing anything they could get their hands on. Bottles, CD covers, whatever was within reach, straight at the stage. And that's when things took an even darker turn. According to hip-hop journalist Davey D, a group of about 15 to 20 guys, all dressed in red, suddenly rushed the stage. These were people affiliated with Death Row Records, and they had one clear target in mind: Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. Now, if you know the history, this move made a lot of sense. Snoop and Dre had both cut ties with Death Row, and things had been messy ever since. There was already unspoken tension in the air before the show even started. And when word got out that Bloods were making their way towards Snoop, things escalated fast. They said that some Bloods were on their way to get Snoop, Echo Haddix later recalled. And it was a lot of people from Death Row there. And we all know they're not the happiest family since Snoop left the label. You know, there was a lot of silent tension going on long before the show even started. With all the madness that had already happened that night, this was the breaking point. The energy in the building had shifted completely, and it was clear that this award show had turned into something way more dangerous than anyone had expected. People left disappointed and frustrated. What was supposed to be a night to celebrate hip-hop ended up being another example of how deep the street politics ran in the industry.
It was an evening of celebrating hip-hop, celebrating music, and the actions of these few people ruined it for everybody here.
And then there's the infamous MTV Video Music Awards incident involving Tupac and Nas, which ended up being the last time Tupac ever spoke in public. Just 3 days later, he was killed. The mid-90s in New York was a wild time for hip-hop, with Nas and Biggie fighting for the title of King of New York, Jay-Z rising up, and Wu-Tang Clan making big moves. It was a competitive and intense scene. When Tupac got involved, it was like adding fuel to an already raging fire. On Nas's second album, The Message, he claimed the King of New York crown and threw shots at Biggie and Jay-Z. But somehow Pac thought the opening line, "Fake thug, no love, you get the slug, CB for gusto," was aimed at him.
Fake thug, no love, you get the slug, CB for gusto.
Suddenly, Nas was caught in the crossfire of Tupac's growing list of enemies, alongside Biggie, Puff Daddy, and Bad Boy Records. Things were made even worse by the fact that Nas was rolling with Mobb Deep, who had their own beef with Pac. The tension between Tupac and Nas came to a head at the 1996 MTV Video Music Awards, where the two bumped into each other. Snoop Dogg later told a story about this encounter, claiming that Nas had rolled in with about 100 shooters from Queens who started to surround the Death Row crew. According to Snoop, Nas didn't want any trouble. Not because he couldn't handle it, but because he chose to keep the peace. Snoop described how Pac was going off on Nas, throwing insults, completely unaware that Nas's crew had them surrounded and could have easily taken them out.
But Nas had 100 guns.
Right.
So listen to what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
By me saying he didn't want none didn't mean he didn't punk out.
But according to Napoleon, who was actually there as one of Tupac's crew, Snoop's version of the story is completely off. Instead of the tense showdown Snoop described, Napoleon says Tupac and Nas were pretty respectful toward each other when they crossed paths. Pac never disrespected Nas like Snoop claimed. In fact, it was more of a mutual respect thing. They talked it out and cleared up the misunderstanding between them right there.
Pac wasn't disrespecting Nas at all. You know, I know Snoop said Pac punked Nas and then went to Snoop and said, "You see how I got these New York dudes?" None of that happened, bro. It was a mutual respect thing, you know? So when Pac and Nas met each other, it was nobody talking disrespect from both sides. Maybe the people behind Nas and the people behind Pac was mean mugging, saying certain things, but Pac and Nas handled it like real gentlemen.
Nas himself also confirmed this.
I heard Snoop told the story a few times, but he had it wrong a little bit. He had said that Pac slipped him, and nobody was really there. Yeah, we had a great combo, man.
Pac even went as far as to promise that once he got back to LA, he would remove Nas's name from any diss tracks where it was mentioned. Sadly, Tupac was killed shortly after and never got the chance to follow through.